The man is still video calling with his good friend 1 second ago. And the next second, he discovers in horror that a strangely behaving woman in red stands beside them at the same time. Just as he curiously looks from top to bottom, observing the other person's every move, the woman's finger suddenly bleeds profusely, and she constantly mutters something. Seeing that the other person is about to discover him, the man quickly hides. Then he prepares to tell this strange incident to his good friend on the other side. However, he sees that the woman in the frame is doing the same action. This truly terrifying scene instantly scares the man, making him flee in panic. Only after running far away does he remember to warn his good friend. All of this begins with their work. The male lead Yamame and Ryuji are a comedy duo. Every day on stage, they repeat outdated jokes. The audience below does not buy it, all of them are expressionless. Only a girl named Azusa laughs heartily. After the performance ends, seeing other artists enthusiastically surrounded by fans, Yamame feels very disappointed. At this moment, Azusa walks over. She has silently followed Yamame for 10 years. And she is his loyal and devoted fan. To express her gratitude, Yamame gives her the umbrella he used during his performance. This also sets the stage for future plot developments. The next day, Azusa joins Yamame's agency and becomes a makeup artist. What she does not know is that Yamame's group has dismal ratings and is about to disband. Another member is assigned a scriptwriting job. However, Yamame is in a dire situation. He has no special talents. Fortunately, Ryuji is loyal and recommends him to a television program producer. He urgently needs some fresh and exciting material to save the dismal ratings. Ryuji then tells him a very real horror story. 3 years ago, his friend's friend moves into a new apartment. Not long after, he mysteriously loses contact. When his friend visits, he finds the room in a mess. And the man is also mentally deranged, crouching behind the closet like a beast. He frantically bites the doorframe. He later learns it is a haunted house. Everyone who lives there goes crazy. The producer immediately becomes interested after hearing this. He immediately proposes a bold plan to Yamame, which is for him to move into the haunted house. Although Yamame is initially resistant, he agrees after careful consideration. So, the next morning, he carries his luggage alone and arrives at his friend's former haunted house. It is an old apartment building. It was originally an illegal structure and not for rent. Reportedly, the previous tenant is a single woman who was cruelly eliminated. Soon, Yamame follows the information and arrives in front of a gloomy door. He takes a deep breath. He pushes open the door. After entering the house, he immediately sets up his camera and begins to record. But the next second, a loud noise suddenly comes from behind him. He turns around to look. Not understanding why, he sees a dark figure standing outside the window. Yamame's heart immediately tightens. He does not expect to encounter a supernatural event so soon. As a result, the moment the other person speaks, he realizes it is a false alarm. The one who arrives is just the property manager collecting fees. What is strange is that his dog suddenly breaks free and rushes into the room, barking incessantly the curtain. The manager sees this and repeatedly apologizes. She says her dog is usually well behaved. But today, for some reason, it is so abnormal. This also indicates that this haunted house is not peaceful. As the scene changes, the time comes to night. Yamame sets up multiple cameras inside the house. He is always ready to capture any slight movement. At this time, the producer calls to ask about the progress. Yamame just explains to him that nothing has been filmed. But the producer is confused and asks him why there is a woman's laughter. After hanging up the phone, Yamame feels a chill down his spine. The next day, he and the producer review last night's footage together. They quickly discover something is wrong. While Yamame is on the phone, a wisp of strange white smoky object slowly floats past him. This discovery makes the production team feel like they have found a treasure. Thus, Yamame's experience. The The footage is quickly edited into a program and broadcast. Terror analysis by the guests invited to the show. They conclude that this ribbon-like light is actually special manifestation state of a ghost. Under his exaggeration, the show unexpectedly becomes a huge hit. Overnight, Yamame transforms from an unknown small actor into a somewhat famous haunted house entertainer. The huge success also moves Ryuji. He finds Yamame, hoping to collaborate again. To increase his persuasiveness, he also brings along the woman who has a crush on Yamame. At a dinner, the woman still expresses her fondness for their past. Yamame also rarely opens up and reveals his original intention for becoming a comedian. It turns out that when he was a child, his beloved grandmother suffered from a terminal illness and did not have much time left. To make his grandmother happy, Yamame goes to the hospital every day to tell her jokes. He always firmly believes in the saying that when a person laughs heartily, they can live for an extra 174 seconds. Then he saw his grandmother burst out laughing and thought she would live for another 174 seconds. Relying on this belief, his grandmother miraculously lives for an extra year. From then on, he resolves to become a comedian. He hopes to continuously inject 174 seconds of life into people. After dinner, Ryuji suggests visiting Yamame's haunted house. Although Azusa looks uneasy, she still agrees. However, as she, who possesses psychic abilities, just arrives downstairs at the apartment building, Shish sees a dark shadow in the bicycle shed. It automatically condenses and then strangely dissipates until she hears the calls of the other two. Only then does she come back to his senses. When they arrive upstairs, while she and Ryuji wait outside the door for Yamame to tidy up the room, strange things happen again. She sees in horror a man wearing a hat and holding a crowbar rush out expressionlessly. Azusa trembles all over, scared by this scene on the spot. So, she finds an excuse and leaves in a hurry. Ryuji, however, feels excited about all of this. He proposes to move into the haunted house with Yamame. But strangely, ever since he moves in, the paranormal phenomena in the house disappear. For several days, nothing is filmed. In addition, the producer continuously urges them that the second episode is about to air. Under duress, Yamame has no choice but to seek Azusa's help. He hopes to use her psychic eyes to find ghosts. Sure enough, soon after Azusa steps into the room, the ghosts of the man wearing a hat and the Woma in red reenact the horrific scene of the crime from that year in front of her. Azusa instantly collapses to the ground from fright. She completely fails to notice a mysterious ghost figure coldly watching them. Unfortunately, this night's footage does not capture any supernatural events. This is because all the cameras malfunction at the critical moment. But soon, horrific things follow one after another. This day, while Yamame and Ryuji are on a video call, they are horrified to discover a woman in red appears behind Ryuji, and there is also an identical one behind him. When Yamame curiously examines the other person, suddenly, the red-clothed female ghost's palm starts seeping dark fluid. Then she slowly turns her head. Yamame is scared out of her wits by this scene. He desperately runs away while warning Ryuji. But as soon as his words fall, almost simultaneously, the two of them encounter a serious car accident at their respective locations. Upon receiving the news, Azusa immediately goes to visit the two of them. Fortunately, Yamame only suffers some minor injuries. However, Ryuji's injuries are much more serious. His entire body is wrapped in bandages. Afterwards, they only then investigate clearly. The man in the hat is the killer from that year. He is already brought to justice. The female ghost in red is the victim from that year. This experience results in a surge in ratings. Yamame and Ryuji also sign a contract because of this, becoming employees of the television station. The story of the first haunted house concludes. In order to continue this hit show, Yamame finds a real estate agent. After explaining his intention, Yokosui introduces him to a large number of haunted house properties. There are all kinds, including those involving jumping from buildings and suicides. Yamame casually picks one and signs the contract. However, just as he and Ryuji move into their new home, the moment they close the door, The mysterious cloaked figure from the first haunted house silently appears behind them. This second haunted house is equally eerie. Beneath the floor seeps dried bloodstains. The bathroom mirror is tightly covered by something. Cracks from impact remain on the tiles. And they also find a clump of gray hair in the sink. Even stranger is that Ryuji receives a voice message from Yamame's phone. The voice sounds like someone speaking with a mouthful of water. But Yamame knows nothing about it. Soon, these new terrifying experiences make Yamame famous again. His solo shows are always packed. His fans are incredibly enthusiastic. However, Azusa, who once laughed heartily for him, is now the only audience member with a troubled expression. After the show ends, as she helps Yamame and a fan take a photo, the phone's AL facial recognition strangely detects a third non-existent face between the two of them. Judging by its appearance, it seems to be an old woman who constantly lingers around Yamame. Azusa screams in terror at the sight. Although Yamame feels uneasy after seeing it, he mostly struggles to hide his inner excitement. So, upon returning home, he immediately goes to a nearby restaurant to inquire and successfully learns the story of the haunted house from the owner. The previous owner is an old woman over 70 years old. Her own son is the one who kills her. To uncover the truth and to gather more material for his show, Yamame has no choice but to ask Fo Azusa's help again. This time, Azusa looks around the room but finds nothing. But just as Yamame goes to the living room to make a call, Azusa horrifyingly discovers that the bathtub, which was originally empty, is now filled with water. As she feels puzzled by this, suddenly, the sink behind her makes a sound. She curiously turns his head to look. In the mirror, a terrifying old woman's face appears. Before she can react, a hand immediately reaches out from the mirror and forcefully shoves Azusa's head into the sink. Fortunately, Yamame arrives just in time and saves her. Looking at the white hair remaining in the sink, they instantly understand the truth behind the murder case from that year. Next, Yamame finds the strange voicemail from before. Inside, there is a faint sound of the old woman being held underwater, desperately crying for help, just as he is about to tell Ryuji the truth about the haunted house. Ryuji packs his bags and prepares leave. He can no longer tolerate all of this. These days, not only does he get into a car accident, but his mother back home also falls seriously ill. And even his father suffers severe burns from a factory fire. He believes all of this is the curse of the haunted house. So he decides to completely withdraw and advises Yamame to stop as well. But at this time, Yamame's career is at its peak, and he immediately rejects Ryuji's advice. The two then go their separate ways. A few days later, Yamame finds Yokosui again and rents a third haunted house. It is said that the landlady just succumbed to the shadow on her own doorknob last month. This is not surprising for Yamame. Yamame moves in without any hesitation. Once inside, the attic catches his attention. He climbs the ladder and feels comfortable lying on it. He completely fails to notice that the shadow appears on the ladder once again. Although he cannot see it, he feels an inexplicable chill. Realizing something is wrong, he quickly gets up and looks around. He discovers a deep indentation on the ladder. A black rope is also tied to it. Just then, he suddenly gets a splitting headache and collapses to the ground. Then, as if out of his control, he blankly picks up a black rope and puts it around his neck. He prepares to reenact the actions of the previous victim. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the doorbell rings. He then vaguely comes back to his senses. He opens the door and discovers the visitor is none other than Azusa. After seeing the rope around his neck, Azusa is very surprised. The now conscious Yamame also feels a wave of fear. Azusa then tells Yamame the information she investigated about the haunted house. It turns out that someone died in this haunted house 2 years ago. Subsequent homeowners all hang themselves in the same way on the attic ladder. They first experience splitting headaches, then lose consciousness and commit suicide by hanging, just as Yamame has just experienced. At this moment, Yamame finally feels a deep-seated fear. So he returns to the company to prepare to resign. But a message from the producer immediately dispels his fear. His show receives recognition from Tokyo TV. They plan to invite him for a special interview. This also means he will become famous nationwide. In his excitement, he once again casts danger aside. And Yokosui seems to have already anticipated Yamame going to Tokyo. She even prepares a fourth house for him in advance, which is also the most sinister one. It is a haunted house where a couple once committed a love suicide. The resentment there is extremely strong. After Azusa learns about it, she wants to dissuade Yamame from going. But judging from her past experiences with haunted houses, she always feels that Yamame is being targeted by something. But Yamame's mind is made up. He unleashes his long-suppressed frustration on Azusa. He used to be like a clown, thinking he was funny, but everyone treated him as a joke. He admits that the entities are indeed terrifying. Compared to a lifetime of mediocrity and being looked down upon, he still chooses the former. Thus, Azusa is left speechless by his retort. As the scene shifts, Yamame ultimately decides to come to Tokyo. As he gets off the plane and heads towards the haunted house, a white-haired old man suddenly stops him. He claims to be the high priest of the Tokyo shrine. He says something powerful is following him. If he is not careful, he might encounter a bloody disaster in the next few days. Therefore, he wants to perform an exorcism for Yamame. Regarding the old man's words, Yamame does not believe him at all. He casually finds an excuse to leave. But the old man persists. Then he opens his overcoat, revealing various high-level talismans hanging inside. He tells him to choose one. Having no choice, to get rid of the old man's persistence, Yamame half-heartedly buys one that looks appealing. This unintentional act will later save his life. Soon after, Yamame arrives at the haunted house in Tokyo. However, as soon as he enters the house and before he can set up his equipment, his vision suddenly goes black, and he collapses in the living room. He only vaguely wakes up at night. Then he starts checking everything inside and out, but he finds nothing amiss. His anxious heart finally settles down. The exclusive interview the next day is very successful. Yamame once again gains a massive number of fans. So he capitalizes on the popularity and starts a live broadcast in the haunted house, preparing to let the entire nation's audience experience the thrill of the haunted house together. During the live broadcast, Yamame even jokes that this haunted house is the least atmospheric he has ever lived in, because nothing has happened so far. However, as soon as he finishes speaking, thousands of viewers in the live broadcast room are terrified to see through their screens that his face is gradually being enveloped by a layer of black mist. Azusa, watching from her screen, is even more terrified, seeing her idol deeply trapped in the situation. Azusa for a moment falls into a dilemma. Just at this moment, the umbrella Yamame previously gave her mysteriously falls to the ground. The scene changes to night. Just as Yamame prepares to sleep, strange things follow one after another. First, the lights in the room suddenly go out. Then an old man appears out of nowhere and firmly grabs his foot. In terror, Yamame forcefully shakes him off. Before he can react, the refrigerator door immediately opens by itself. A plump woman is hiding inside eating ice cream. This is not all. A man wearing glasses peeks out from the attic. A scrawny woman crawls out of the wall cabinet. She immediately rushes towards him with a knife. Fortunately, her target is the man behind Yamame. In this way, the two then, in front of Yamame, stage a thrilling struggle. Ultimately, it ends tragically with both of them dying together. While Yamame still feels confused by this, the next second, everyone in the room turns ferocious. They all collectively point their spears at Yamame. Why at this moment Yamame realizes they're not living people, but rather the spirits of all the murder that occurred in this house. They surround him like walking dead. At a critical moment, Yamame takes out the amulet he bought from the old man. He aims it at them, hoping for a miracle. Unexpectedly, it actually works. The golden light emitted by the amulet instantly repels the evil spirits. Indeed, the old man does not lie to him. This is indeed a top-grade exorcism talisman. However, just as Yamame breathes a sigh of relief, the shadow that has been following him finally reveals its true form. Yamame has absorbed too much of the haunted house's aura. He is already his most perfect vessel. It is now time for him to make his move. The amulet can deal with minor spirits, but in front of him, it instantly shatters into pieces. This shadow figure seems to have no fixed face. He appears to be the embodiment of all vengeful spirits' resentment. Just as Yamame does not know what to do, Azusa suddenly rushes over. She uses the umbrella Yamame gave her earlier to smash the glass and rushes into the room. Unfortunately, she has courage but no power to exorcise. Soon, the two are controlled by the shadow figure and begin a fatal confrontation. They are exactly like the man and woman seen earlier. Fortunately, at the last moment of life and death, Ryuji arrives, because he also saw the supernatural live stream. As Yamame's good brother of 10 years, he cannot stand by and do nothing. Moreover, he comes prepared this time. He first splashes holy water at the shadow figure, but it has no effect whatsoever. Then he takes out an exorcism token, but the shadow figure easily shatters it. In desperation, Ryuji calls Yokosui, who sells haunted houses. It turns out she is actually a sorcerer, which is why she dares to resell haunted houses. Thus, under Yokosui's guidance, Ryuji lights sandalwood incense. He chants the spell, and this time, it finally works. The shadow lets out a painful wail. At the same time, the resentment floating on Yamame and Azusa is also forced out. However, the shadow quickly adapts to the sandalwood's attack. He just waves his hand, knocking Ryuji to the ground and bouncing back the burning sparks. Seeing this, Yamame subconsciously opens the old umbrella on the ground. At this moment, an incredible scene occurs. This umbrella, which has spanned their 10 years of failed comedy careers and holds his initial 174 seconds of dreams, now unleashes a power stronger than a magical artifact. It happens to be the nemesis of the shadow, a collection of resentment. Finally, the shadow is completely destroyed by the light emitted from the umbrella. The three of them narrowly escape disaster. They think the matter is over. However, good times do not last. Yamame and Azusa find Yokosui again. This time, they do not want to rent a haunted house. Instead, they want to buy a cozy house as their new home for love. But just as Yokosui prints out property listings for them, the shadow quietly appears behind her. It seems to understand who its real threat is. It quietly possesses Yokosui while she is not paying attention. Immediately after, Yokosui stands up with empty eyes. The person loses control and walks straight out the door. Then, under Yamame and Azusa's astonished gaze, a speeding truck directly causes the person to meet a tragic end on the spot. The film ends here. Overall, The Haunted House Mystery is a work that exceeds expectations. It uses a bizarre story of a haunted house sleep tester to explore human greed and ignorance, while making viewers feel terror. It also triggers a deep reflection on themselves and the era they live in. True stability is never achieved by plundering popularity or by building castles in the air. Instead, it comes from the steadfastness and composure of staying true to oneself.